to this computer. All right. So we're here to talk about 2025. Maybe if it's easy, to show of hands somehow, if you've done the event before, if you can go ahead. I don't know how you could do that either. Yeah, that's awesome. So we have a mix of people, and I know there are some that said earlier they did not do the event. Let me see 1 second. I'm trying to. All right, I assume you guys can see this.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is a picture of Jackrabbit Johansson. I'm going to talk about him just a little bit. And before I do that, I'm just going to start the session. I hope this works. It's just like a 45-second video, so don't panic. It's not a 5-minute video. It's relatively brief.
Wow.
Herman Johansson.
Look at that. Look at him go.
Rial, I think you need to turn on the audio and restart it.
Sophia, that's his daughter.
Yes, I thought, oh, I forgot to click this. I kind of knew how to do that before and I forgot, Chris. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Not a professional.
Herman Johansson
Better?
can still ski 5 or 6 kilometers a day. Herman is happiest when he's canoeing 5 or 6 kilometers a day. Herman is happiest when he's canoeing, hiking, or skiing. His world has always been the world of the out-of-doors.
I'm more like a coureur de bois. I like to find out what's on the other side of the hill. I want to walk up and I'm not satisfied in my backyard. I want to find out what there is beyond the hill. Find out what the country looks like. I want adventure.
So, for this remarkable man, Herman Smith Johansson, 99, going on a century, life has been, and still continues to be, a long, long ski trail, and a happy one. Herman Johansson.
So this is myself. Sorry, guys. I'm having some technical difficulties with my computer here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Quiet in there that way. No, it's getting a feedback.
Okay, I'm just going to talk blind. Jackrabbit was a big part of the event through the 70s. You might notice that in our event we have retired bib numbers, and there are people that ski with particular bibs. We used to make him ski with a bib that corresponded to his age, and the last bib that we have associated with him is 111. So when he was 108, we had a bib that was 108 that he skied with, and 109, there was a 109 bib that he skied with when he was 109 years old. So it was pretty special. And this year is a really amazing year in that it is the 150th anniversary of Jackrabbit.
His birth. Wow.
Its birth, yes. And so many cross-country ski events around the North America, especially the Northeast, will be using Jackrabbit as a theme, and we're no exception to that because he absolutely loved the Canadian Ski Marathon, and what he loved about it was that it's not a race, and our event is kind of friendly in nature and not a competition. And so if you've never skied it, you will notice the behaviors on the trail are pretty friendly. People are very encouraging of whatever challenge that you've decided to do. And I'm going to have another apology here. I'm having a problem with my computer, so. All right, are you still seeing my slides? You're not, eh?
Nope.
What the heck? It's not the first time I do this, guys.
There you go.
All right. And so we've met who we are. What we're gonna talk about today is what will the event look like in 2025. If you have any questions, probably the best thing to do is to either raise your hands or use the chat line. Chris will be monitoring the chat, and at some times he'll either answer your questions. Him and Justin will go directly in the chat line and answer your questions. Otherwise, they'll choose to interrupt me if they see questions that are interesting for everybody to hear. I assume that makes sense for everybody. And so then we're going to talk about what worked well, what did the event look like last year, and what are we doing that will make the event better this year in 2025, and then kind of describe the weekend, especially if you've never done the event. It can seem a bit overwhelming because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and there's like different venues. There's different, aspect of the planning that you have to be familiar with as you're engaging to spend the weekend with us. Very important and core to the event is understanding what the trail that you're going to ski on is like. And so we'll describe a little bit of the trail, not in super detail, but at a high level. And then we'll talk just a little bit about the skier's guide, because what we often find is, to be explicit, the skier guide doesn't always get read by everyone. And we've made some changes to it to make it more user-friendly, shall we say, and more available to skiers this year. At the same time, we just want to really emphasize that it's really important to read the skier's guide. A lot of the questions that folks have about the weekend could be answered, through the details that we have in the skier's guide. And I'll talk a little bit about the Canadian Ski Challenge as well. So, a little bit of repeat here. Jackrabbit that's a picture of Jackrabbit at 102 years old. One of the things that he was particularly well known for was his passion for bringing children to skiing, in the winter into the outdoors to have fun, not just to be cross-country ski racers, but to participate in healthy activities in the Canadian outdoors. And he absolutely loved, skiing in North America and in Canada in particular. He was obviously from Europe, from Norway, but he, was there for a long, long time and skied. Was really well known to travel up and down, especially in Quebec, all over the geography, doing his skiing. And that's kind of motivating us in our approach for 2025. We want to make sure that we celebrate his life and his legacy. He obviously had a real affinity for our event, and that's something that we cherish tremendously. And we're fortunate. We actually have a great grandson who's on the board of directors with us, Michael O'Gorman. And so we feel really special about that because we have a real kind of link towards Jackrabbit. And there are other family members through the decades that we've known that have been involved either directly on the board or indirectly that have helped us, put the event forward, decade after decade. I just want to quickly describe the team, because if you send us email questions or you phone our office, a lot of the interaction will be with a woman called Mariam Adam, who is absolutely tremendous. She's been with us for a few years now, and she understands the event really, really well. She answers the phone and answers email. That's the person you interact with the most as a skier, probably. Julie Mailloux is someone that we added this year. Jeff Picard is our logistics director. He's the one who makes sure, all the food arrives at the checkpoint on time, the propane, the infrastructure behind the physical event is there to greet skiers. So he has a huge role. He's been with the event for well over 10 years, so he understands like the inside outs of the event like really, really well. And super, super, super excited to bring on Bob Leclerc kind of oversee as an event director this year. Obviously, we would have liked Bob to arrive in last August, but we just found Bob. We're happy to find him now. But he's kind of coming in through halfway through the year. So he'll be working with me and Chris quite a bit through the year and kind of fully take on the role as event director by the time we plan, the next event. And one thing to keep in mind is that we have well over 300 volunteers. Obviously, no volunteers, no event. So, during the weekend, I always say, if you see volunteers, find a small way to to say thank you and be appreciative. Justin and Chris, have been volunteers for over 25 years in our event. And now they do even more than volunteer their time during the weekend. They volunteer their time through the whole year to help us out. Amidst these volunteers that show up on the weekend, we probably have approximately 25 volunteer leads who all have like different roles, functional roles to help put the event together, and they get involved as well outside of the weekend to kind of prepare ourselves. So just something to keep in mind that, events, volunteers are a big part of whatever events you might do, whether you're running the Ottawa Marathon or, a local race in your neighborhood, wherever you happen to be from. Always want to say thank you to volunteers. So 2025, the event is going to be centered around Montebello as it was last year. If you know a little bit about our history, most people will associate the Canadian Ski Marathon with an event that used to be skied between Lachute and in the town of Gatineau or Ottawa, especially in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. We started to change things up a little bit. We've started to ski from Mont Tremblant to Lachute approximately 8 years ago. And then, of course, we had the pandemic in year 2021 and year 2022, where, like many other events, we had to go virtual. We made a return to in situ event in 2023. And one of the things that we're still dealing with is, there are a few less skiers than there used to be. We're very hopeful that with the return of a good winter and just the quality of our event, I know that when we had the event last year, even though there wasn't, a lot of snow, people were like super excited about our ability to put on like a world-class event. And, we do it year after year. And so in kind of until we return to skiing numbers that are, 14 to 1500 like we used to see before the pandemic, we're going to continue to center the event around Montebello. The nice thing about it is we're kind of more part of the community in Montebello, I can say that. We spend more time there. More skiers, spend time in Montebello and obviously less in Lachute and in Gatineau. But it's kind of adding a sense that we kind of belong as part of that community. What it also helps us is we've really partnered. So let me back up. When we had the event from Lachute to Gatineau, we interacted literally with hundreds of landowners to plan our trail through the geography. Now we probably have 30 to 40 landowners to interact with, and a big landowner is the Canuck Reserve, where we probably ski. I want to say 60 to 70% of our trails are in the Canuck Reserve. And because we're working with them, we have like a lot more flexibility than we used to have. They have a really nice network of cross-country ski trails. And so we were alluding earlier to what we had to do last year. It would have been really, really, really difficult to do that without having access to the trail network that Canuck has to offer. So we're kind of excited to return in Canuck. The trail will be a little bit different, from last year for what was actually skied. What we'll be doing is actually what we had planned to do last year before we had the melt that happened over the last couple of weeks before the event.
Ral, you have a question from one of the participants about the numbers.
Cool.
Just they're asking, they're surprised to hear that we have less people than before the pandemic.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe you just want to touch on that.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that a little bit. Before the pandemic, we would have 1,400 skiers, I would say would be a small number. The event often had 1,500 skiers and more than 1,500 skiers. During the pandemic, I think people were so excited to have something to do, and I think we did a really good job. Our virtual event were quite popular. I think we did a great job there of defining something that was attractive. And also, let's face it, during the pandemic, we all wanted to find an excuse to go do something. And so because we offered something positive, I think that was healthy for a lot of people. People kind of jumped in. Then, the pandemic ended. I think there's a couple of factors. People, I think, were slow we are a 2-day event where people have to congregate in Montebello. A lot of people stay at the local high school. Not everyone does, but suddenly, you're in year one after the pandemic, and suddenly, you have to kind of go gather into a gym and go congregate in a city and meet up. And so it wasn't obvious to everybody, I think. And then the elephant in the room as well is after COVID, everything in society, you'll have noticed, the prices went up for everything, and we were not immune to that. And a big part of where the prices went up was fuel, and our event is so dependent on fuel because of the huge amount of grooming that we do. It's a trail that is unique for that event that is not prepared. Some of the trail is prepared for other skiers, but generally speaking, a lot of the trail is prepared only for us, and so we have a lot of fuel costs. So, I'm someone who does, I've historically, I've run a lot of marathons. I've done Ironmans and stuff, and I find our prices pretty compatible with other events. I'm pretty confident that what we offer, like, excellent value. At the same time, we're also, trying to attract a lot of families and people with children, and so we're not immune to rising costs. And so I think post-pandemic, we saw a few challenges. And so in strict numbers now, year one, we had less than 1,100 skiers, so about 1080 if I recall. And in year two, which was last year, we had less than 1,200 skiers. We had again 1,150 to 1,180 skiers. And this year we're hoping, as before, we're like really challenging ourselves to bring 1,400 skiers to the region. And we're a nonprofit organization. We have generous donors at the government level and at the individual private level, and some small companies. We don't have if you go to the Ironman or some big competition where they have a title sponsor that will give a lot of cash to an event and have the event named after them. We don't have that. And so the fees that we have, as much as they're reasonable, at the same time, without the generosity of government donors, and the fees would be even higher. So we need to bring more skiers. If we had 900 skiers, the event would really struggle. 11, 1,200 is okay, but we really want to have 1,400 skiers. If you're new to the event, or if you know the event, you'll know that many skiers wonder about why we don't ski the Mont Tremblant to Lachute, or the Lachute to Gatineau route, which was the linear route. And to be able to put forth that route as an organization, basically we need more revenues because we need to spend money to prepare the trail. And it's a complex trail that needs a lot of work. And it needs to have 1,400 skiers, over a few years so that we could, do that. So I tend to talk a lot, so I think I've answered that in great detail. I apologize.
Sorry, Rail, I'm going to interrupt before you go on any further. Half of your screen on my computer is black, and I'm wondering if that, and there's black boxes bouncing around. I don't know if that's at my end or that's symptomatic of the problems you've sensed that you're having.
I was wondering if that was because you had the chat open.
Chat. I noticed before I didn't have the
You can close the chat, Ral, and we'll keep it open and keep you.
Oh, maybe this is. Do you guys still see my slides?
Now it's totally black.
No, totally black.
Yeah, I've realized what this is. I'm trying to kill where it says, where does it say don't show meetings?
Yeah,
So I'm looking for something in the menu here.
at the bottom where it says more, usually you've got it.
Yes, that's where I am. I saw it a moment ago. So now, is it better?
No.
Give you another few moments, Rial, and then if you want, I can share my screen with the same slideshow, and you can tell me when to advance.
So that would probably work.
And it will still be, even though I'm recording, it'll still be captured.
Maybe.
If I close it, is it better now?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
All
You
right.
still have a bar across the top, but other than
Okay.
that,
I've lost you guys, but I don't need to see you guys, I assume.
Are you sharing your whole desktop or just the slideshow?
oh,
I
there you go.
thought
There you
it
go.
was just a slideshow, I
Okay,
thought.
it's now fine.
now.
I'll let you know later if
Yeah.
if a
Yeah,
problem comes back.
what I've done is I've minimized I've minimized you guys, and you guys are gone from my screen.
Yeah.
Anyway, apologies. So thank you for that question, and don't hesitate to jump in, guys, because I can't see you anymore. So let me know if there are questions.
We'll let you know.
So one of the things that we also changed, and I'll get into those details in a moment, we've changed our busing approach to years past. So again, if you're new to the event, if you were entering the touring category, you're basically wanting to ski, typically less than the 5 sections per day. Our event is usually thought of as sections per day. It's 80 kilometers each day, but each of these 80 kilometers are divided into 5 sections that are 12 to 20 kilometers on average. And skiers often think of, I will ski 2 or 3 or 4 sections during my weekend, or 1 section. And a lot of our awards category, because we're not a race, they're not based around how quickly you ski, but they're based on how many sections you ski. And we have a variety of awards for youth and for everybody across the board. That's kind of based on the sections that they ski. In the past, we had more or less, I'm going to exaggerate and say infinite flexibility in where you can get on a shuttle and go to any section and ski whatever you want, and then have a shuttle bring you back to your car or to Chateau Montebello, or wherever you were parked, which was of course a bit more expensive to do, not particularly environmentally friendly, and more difficult for us to plan. And so in kind of our ever goal of trying to optimize the event and make it as smooth as possible, we've changed things up last year. There were some things, last year was the first year we were doing this, and so we got some things, not 100% right. And I think we're doing a better job this year in terms of offering more busing flexibility. And I'll describe how the busing works in a future slide if this all sounds kind of confusing. But basically, we're going to have better flexibility than last year, this year, in the way that we run our buses. And then a big thing that I've highlighted in red is like the trail options and the backup plans. Again, if you're new to the event, the Canadian Ski Marathon, I mentioned earlier, I've done it for the last 35 years. The event always happens. We are very accustomed to designing backup plans. We go into the last 2 weeks ready for almost any kind of trail disaster, and we find ways of creating a trail for skiers. Having said that, last year's lack of snow was a bit drastic and tragic, and a lot of the skiers that were the skiers that were skiing what's called the taster category, or the 1 section tours, which are typically people that are not looking to ski. They're not looking to ski 50 kilometers. They're usually looking to ski 12 to 16 kilometers per day. And last year, when we implemented our backup plan, that didn't quite work so well. And some of them had to ski over 20 kilometers. They ended up starting a little bit too late in the day, and they finished in the dark. And so that wasn't really well done. The good news is that we really learned, and Chris and I and Justin are intimately familiar with the kind of the details of how to plan these routes. And so I'm confident, we did a super good job this year of making things better for all skiers of all abilities, and especially for those that are skiing the shorter distances. All right. So your CSM adventure, as I was kind of saying, we're guided by having a sustainable solution. We want a CSM that keeps happening in 26, 27, and 2030 and 2035. And so we are being prudent. There's no doubt about that, because we want the event to keep going. One of the nice things with this new approach that we have with the busing is when you register, you kind of notice you have to pick how many sections you're committing to skiing. But you ski less, you pay less. And in the old days, if you were a tourer and the fee was, I'll just say $100, you paid $100 whether you were skiing one section or five section as a tourer. Nowadays, the way that we've structured things, you kind of pay on a, more or less a per section kind of scenario. So a tourer who signs up for four section, pays more money than a tourer who signs up for one section. So that's kind of makes things more attractive, especially with people that are trying to come with families. And I'll mention something special about, skiing with families in a few moments. So you do select your distance at registration, but it doesn't mean that you can't adapt on the weekend. The only thing is, if you're signing up for one section and you decide on the weekend, well, you know what, I'm going to ski five sections, even though I paid for only one, well, that's not going to work. Yeah, what people are able to do is maybe they have ambition, they want to train, they want to sign up for four sections each day, and they're going to ski eight sections on the weekend. The weekend arrives, and the training didn't go as planned. There was a lack of snow. It's not the end of the world. Our busing is quite flexible, and on the Saturday, on Sunday, you can kind of choose to go on a bus that will take you to a shorter distance to ski. And at the same time, if you're skiing out there and you're not able to complete your goal that you intended, you don't have to call a family or friend to come and get you. We're very good at extracting people from the trail. You have to get yourself to a checkpoint typically, unless you're injured. And we have the ability to remove people from checkpoint quite well. All our checkpoints are equipped with warming buses. So, if there's any issues with the temperatures being -30, -20, suddenly, you're stuck having to wait for whatever reason, you've called someone to come and get you, or we're going to come and get you. We do have every checkpoint full time during both days are equipped with warming buses. So if it's raining or if the temperature is really ugly outside, you're not sitting outside freezing while you're waiting for a couple of hours. And a big part of what we do this is it greatly reduces the amount of bus travel through the 2 days. We used to have a lot of traffic with shuttle buses, traveling between Montebello and Lachute and Montebello and Gatineau for Saturday and Sunday in the past. And we've been able to greatly reduce the amount of bus travel that we have over the weekend. And at the core of the event, we're not doing anything to change it. The way that the awards are structured for tours are still the same. If you're a Coureur des Bois, there's still 80 kilometers to ski each day. You're still doing 160 kilometers of skiing, and there's still a gold camp the way that there used to be. There we go. So, in kind of the theme with Jackrabbit, very important to bring young skiers to the event and wanting families to ski. I mean, we want to do that for the event, but we want to do that for the population as well. Jackrabbit was a big promoter of a healthy lifestyle. One thing, through the generosity of donors this year, we started a program for 2025 where junior skiers, so if you're a junior and you're less than 18, you get one section free. So if you signed up for four section, you're only paying for three sections. The upshot of that is if you're trying to ski one section, which a lot of 6-year-olds out there that are going to sign up for one section, well, they ski for free. So if you're a young family and you're trying to bring, a couple of children that are 4 or 5 years old, 8 years old, that want to ski only one section, well, the kids are skiing for free. And so that's pretty amazing. And a big thank you. We have kind of anonymous, generous donors who are longtime participants in the Canadian Ski Marathon out of Montreal that are funding this program. So we're really, really excited to be able to do that for 2025. It's one of the real highlights of the year, to try to get more kids out on skis with with their parents. And anyone who is a junior taster is basically going to benefit by getting one free section. Again, as I alluded to earlier, important to read the skier guide, understand the flow of the weekend. A big part of kind of understanding what goes on is knowing that whether you're coming from home, from an Airbnb, a local motel, what you have to know is where do I park and where do I pick up a shuttle? That is kind of one of the basic things about the ski marathon is to know where parking lots are and to know what time to get on a shuttle bus. And our skier guide is like super explicit with that information. I'll have a sample of what that looks like in a moment. But the skier guide, its final version usually comes out, a few weeks from now, but it's before the event. One of the things that we've changed up is we have a lot of that information readily available on our website that in the past used to be more for kind of kept for the skier's guide, but now it kind of lives on the website permanently and it's more readily available than it used to be. So we have buses from Saint Michel High School and Papineauville High School and the Chateau Montebello. Those are kind of the three core locations. Typically, if you're somebody who's staying at the Chateau Montebello, then you're getting a shuttle bus from there. If you're, most of the skiers don't stay at Chateau Montebello. The parking lots are a little bit around town, and we have shuttle buses, from parking lots. And again, those details are in the skier's guide. But you have to know that in Papineauville or Saint Michel School is where you'll get a shuttle bus to your start line. And I'll show you in a moment what that looks like. One of the key features, again, because people are selecting the distance that they're skiing before they register, what that allows us to do, and that is another kind of a cool thing, is everybody finishes in Montebello at the church in downtown Montebello. So in the past, if you were a 2 or 3 or 4 section tourer, every tourer could behave a little bit differently and decide to do, these 2 sections or those 2 sections, and they would kind of finish throughout the day at different places. They would get on a bus and they would go back to a high school where their bags were, where the car was parked. But now, because we know what everyone is skiing, we can take them to an appropriate location so that the distance they ski means they finish in Montebello. And so it's a bit more festive. Everything will be, centered around the church in Montebello. You'll be able to pick up your medals there. The event ends up being a little bit simpler for participants. And I think more exciting because there's a more festive atmosphere as a finisher. And so you get the kind of the pleasure of finishing isn't just being given to those that are doing, the Coureur des Bois, or it's kind of being given to everybody equally. And so that's kind of a cool thing. And so during registration, if you haven't registered already, now you have the option to pick up your medals or if you bought a meal at a different location. And that's kind of a really nice feature. In the past, people were always forced to get on a shuttle to go and go back to a school where they would get medals and a meal if they chose to. Now they can choose to do that right at the finish line. They can get picked up. They can get picked up right from there, or if they take a shuttle, they can just get in their car and go away and make the weekend a little simpler, than what it used to be. I assume that's kind of clear. So here is the kind of the fun part is showing you the course. And so it is heavily reliant on Canuck, but not entirely. So the black border that you see, I think you can see this. This black border is the Canuck Reserve. And we go outside of it at the beginning and at the end here. Montebello is, of course, here.
Right there.
And I'll show Saturday and Sunday differently in a couple of slides. But just kind of know that this is kind of the structure of the event. The Saturday is in red and in green is the Sunday. Both days are approximately 80 kilometers. And the detailed description of this with all the section map is available on our website. So the website is always super useful to go visit. Yeah. The other thing that we're able to do by skiing in this region is in the past, the CSM has been known for having, I dare say, a bit too much roadside skiing. It is very challenging to prepare 160 kilometers of trail from Lachute to Montebello and avoid roads, because now there are more and more roads than there used to be, 40 years ago. There are many more neighborhoods. this thing called the urban sprawl is a very real thing. And roadside skiing can be very annoying for skiers. We, by and large, are able to avoid this to a great extent now. And so the quality of the skiing is much nicer. It's easier for our groomer to prepare the trail. The trail work has already begun, in November, October. The groomer is traveling in the trail, doing some cleaning and prepping the trail, making sure there's no downed trees and all this good stuff. It's easier for us to do that now that the region is a bit more self-contained. There's still 5 section days, as I mentioned earlier. Even though there's a lot of skiing in Canuck, we've done a really good job so that you don't ski on the same trail twice. And when you do visit the same trail, you're in another direction. And so the trail will feel quite different because you're skiing in the opposite direction. The section lengths are quite good. There's 20 kilometers, 21 kilometers, some 12s, and everything in between that. So there isn't, a 25K section, which can be a bit more daunting for folks because, you're traveling a long time between checkpoints where there's help with like food and hot beverages and stuff. The longer sections you see these little blue bubbles here. There are water points at the longer section. So about halfway, we have a safety team handing out water to all the skiers. So at least you're able to get replenished with, not with snacks necessarily, but with water. And as I mentioned earlier, the Saturday and Sunday, we finish in Montebello. And so I'll talk about the buses maybe on the next slide intentionally.
And Real, the checkpoints have food and drink as well, correct?
Yes, and I'll describe this now. So here is Saturday. So on Saturday, we start at Golfe l'Héritage. If you're a tour who's signed up for 5 sections, which is typically, a fairly small number of skiers will do that, they will start at Golfe l'Héritage. Most tours, the most common distance is probably 2 and 3, I would say. So the ones that are more ambitious will want to ski 60 kilometers in a day, and we will bus them to the Taunton checkpoint, and they will ski the last 4 sections of the day. The skiers that have signed up for 3 sections, and I'll describe half marathoner in a moment, are aiming to ski 50 kilometers, 49.2 on Saturday, and we bus them to Eskdale at an appropriate time. And they ski the final 3 sections. And then, of course, 2 sections is 28 kilometers. They go to Sandpit, then they ski to Sport Clay, and then they ski down to Montebello. And the tasters ski 16 kilometers. I don't want to say that it's easy skiing, but it's certainly easier skiing. The last section, as you go from a high point of land to Montebello, generally has more downhills than uphills. So most people will consider that, I'll just say it's friendly skiing. And yes, these checkpoints that are the green stars are kind of fully equipped with, that's where I was saying before, where there are warming buses. There's food and liquids. The liquids will be cold water, hot water, cold Gatorade, hot Gatorade. There's something called honey water, which is quite popular at the marathon. So there's hot honey water, and then there's a variety of food options that are kind of typical from a sporting event perspective. There might be cut up bagels, cut up bananas, some granola stuff, cookies. There's sometimes tiny yogurts. We have a couple of checkpoints which will probably have hot dogs, and there's a checkpoint that will have chili. And there's often hot soup as well. I think it's mostly minestrone soup when there's hot soup. There's hot soup at almost all the checkpoints. And of course, as you see, if you're skiing the first section, which is 20 kilometers, which would be, for a lot of skiers, that will be 3 hours, a little less than 3 hours. They have a halfway point where there's a safety team and water. Same thing with this 21-kilometer section between Eskdale and Sandpit. And to note, the other thing that we have at all these checkpoints is we have a safety team, right? And so we have like radio contact with someone as what we call net control, where we plan our logistics from that perspective, and also all our safety. So we have like a full safety team that we contract. There's probably approximately, I'll say 20 resources around the course. We have safety skidoos and the ability to extract an injured skier from the trail. If you're a half marathoner, there's a distinction between a half marathoner and a 3-section. If you're somebody who would maybe like to do Coureur des Bois one day, which is skiing the 5 sections, and you find that a little bit daunting and wondering how you would cope with that challenge, you can sign up as a half marathoner instead of a tourer. And so a tourer who skis 3-section faces, these checkpoints are not open all day. They do eventually close. So if you're skiing rather slowly for the safety of you, the skier, the volunteer and the organization, eventually we have to make sure skiers aren't arriving in the dark. And so checkpoints do through the day close. But you're able to ski at a fairly nice, relaxed pace. The Coureur des Bois, because they're trying to ski all 5 sections, they have to ski a little bit faster. And so we have a category called half marathoners, and they basically ski the last 3 sections. The only difference with them is we structure their start time so that they're faced with a similar challenge as a Coureur des Bois. And so they can kind of see if they're able to ski that kind of distance and still meet the more aggressive cutoffs of a Coureur des Bois. So that's what the half marathoner is versus a 3-section tour. And on Sunday, so I'll just say one last thing. So this is roughly, even though it looks like a loop, it's not a loop. It's actually a point-to-point course because you start in Gave l'Héritage and you finish in Montebello. Of course, if you're a tour, you're not starting necessarily in Gave l'Héritage. You're starting at different points along the course. And then on the Sunday, you go counterclockwise, but you don't go all the way to Gave l'Héritage. You're staying a bit more inside of Canuck, and you're skiing a little bit on trails that you've seen on the Saturday, but you're doing them in reverse, and then you're also skiing on trails that you did not see on Saturday. So in this case, you're leaving from Montebello on Sunday morning, and you're skiing up on the left here to Sport Clay. That's if you're a 5-section tour. Again, not that common, but if you're a 4-section tour, you'll be taken to Sport Clay. If you're a 3-section tour, you'll be taken to Sandpit. And you're skiing this counterclockwise. You're skiing towards Taunton. And then if you're a 2-section tour, you're taking a bus to Taunton, and you're skiing a 17-kilometer section and then a 16-kilometer section on the way down to Montebello. And the distances are, as I've indicated, 63, 51, 33, and 16 kilometers. And the section is a little bit different for the because you're skiing on 2 different legs if you're a CSM taster. Have I missed anything, guys? Excuse me. I'll continue. So some key points. If the weather seems like it would be a factor during the weekend, do pay particular attention to email. Right now, our best way for us to communicate with skiers on the last 10 days before the event is via email. We don't have any kind of like app-based tools where we'll push messages to your phone. It's basically email right now. So if we have to make emergency changes because of weather conditions is the most typical reason, we would communicate with all the skiers the last 2 weeks, the last 10 days before the event. Of course, we have everybody's email address through the registration process. Again, I want to highlight that we have a plan B in place and that it is, I'll just say this way, it is a much better plan than last year in that it helps, I think, the skiers have more manageable distances, particularly for the CSM tasters. What allows us, to have such good quality plan Bs in place is the fact that there's a good trail network in Canuck that is, I would say, relatively easy for us to create options for what we can do. And because they have some trails that are wider than other trails, they're easier to groom if suddenly, we have an issue that we have to manage and create a trail for, for our skiers. I'll say, if it's colder than -15, and depending on your background in cross-country skiing, just kind of be aware of how far you're skiing. If you're skiing, if it's -20 and you're doing 16 kilometers and you're out for 3 hours, you probably should kind of know how to get dressed for that kind of personal challenge. If you're skiing something that is personally challenging to you and it's, -25, just make sure you understand your clothing options and you have snacks with you. How to prepare for that is kind of beyond the scope of what I'm going to talk about. But kind of be aware, especially if you're skiing with children, and then, do you need advice because you're not confident at -20 that, you might not make a mistake in your clothing or how to cope with kids. Just kind of reach out to us. The office is very used to answering questions, and they kind of pair skiers up with either volunteer board members, or we have a set of ambassadors. We have about 50 ambassadors through North America. Of course, most of them are centered, between let's say between Toronto and Quebec City, let's say, but we have ambassadors in the US and a little bit everywhere that are like super experienced with our event. And so sometimes when people need more advice on how to prepare, we pair them up with ambassadors or with other volunteers to help kind of detail preparation. Especially if you see that it's going to be a cold weekend, and again, if you're skiing with kids or you're not confident, it's just best to reach out and make sure nothing bad happens. I just want to say, if you haven't done, keep in mind we're not a race. It's really important to say that. We're kind of a friendly event, even though we have skiers of all abilities. We have we have beginners, we have very young skiers, we have, I'll say, very old skiers, and we have like endurance athletes who are super keen and super talented. But at the same time, the behaviors on the trail, it has a kind of a long legacy that's 59 years old of being an event that has something, I guess I'll say, that Jack Rabbit was very proud of supporting, because he just loved our event because we were not a race. And so that's, one of the cool things about us. We're people that just love being outside and, doing your personal challenge, whatever that might be. Bring friends with you, talk about the event. We always like having more skiers and more new skiers as well. And if you're out on the trail, acknowledge our volunteers. They're outside all day, making sure that we're able to have an amazing event and helping skiers. So I always want to thank a volunteer. Won't go into great details about this, but just kind of a sample of what you'll see in our skiers guide. There is a bus schedule that has like very specifics about what time you start. You'll see there's like a start time for these checkpoints. I purposely blocked this out a bit because I didn't want people to kind of read this as if it was gospel, because it changes every year. But we basically, know when the buses are going to leave. It's going to be published very clearly in a skier's guide. And so you end up knowing that if you're a 3-section skier, I have to start at that checkpoint, and you'll be told if you're a 3-section tour, your bus leaves at these locations at these time, and you have to catch a bus. Again, all skiers, finish in Montebello. We have warming buses for emergencies and extraction vehicles. I've mentioned this before. I'm near the end in case you're wondering why I've been talking.
One thing, Riel, that we usually don't say in this webinar, but for those who are new to the event, that's really important on the shuttle buses to be aware. There is no parking whatsoever at any checkpoint. And in fact, cars are not even permitted into the Kennock Reserve. So it's mandatory that you take advantage of the shuttle system that will take you right where you need and then bring you back. Don't try to plan your weekend as if you're going to drive and find a parking space somewhere near one of the checkpoints. It won't happen.
And please be sure that you get on your shuttle bus, because if you miss your shuttle bus, you're almost out of luck.
If you miss your shuttle bus, your only option is to change to the next bus that continues further along the trail, and you'll ski one section less.
So you're not totally out of the water, but you'll probably, you'll miss skiing one of the sections you signed up for. Huge point, Chris. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll just re-emphasize it. Canuck is a private property that are allowing us to ski on it, but you can't have family and friends come and get you or come and visit you on the trail. Road travel is next to impossible in Canuck. It's not really allowed. It's closed. We have emergency vehicles that kind of come and go, and we have our own buses. But you're totally reliant on our shuttle bus system when you're out on the course. And yeah, indeed, there are no parking at even if a checkpoint is outside of Canuck, there is no parking at the checkpoints. Checkpoints are very busy with skiers and logistics. There's like waxing station. There's like limited space. There's a couple of big vehicles that have to cope with all the supplies for the checkpoint staff. So yeah, there's no parking there.
Another caution that people should be aware of, and I think you've alluded to it, Rael, maybe not explain it explicitly, but it is very important for your safety and for everyone in the event that everyone be off the trail by dusk. And the way we enforce that is that we only permit you to enter the last section of the day at the sporting clay checkpoint prior to 3:30 in the afternoon. We know that if you start at 3:30, even skiing at a relatively slow pace, you will finish by dusk. But after 3:30, you will regrettably meet Justin Berganza in person, who wants to say
Actually,
something.
it's Chris. It's 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 2 o'clock, Chris.
Oh, sorry, it's different.
Our close of vlog at 3:30, but at 2 o'clock we do close the checkpoints, and I'm usually the person at the checkpoint ensuring that the cutoffs are being respected. So if you see me at a checkpoint, your day might be almost done.
Come on, people like seeing you at a checkpoint.
We had a past president who arrived, and he was a coureur de bois. He arrived at 3:31. Guess what? He didn't do his last section.
Okay, I think it was 3:32, Chris. You're exactly
Sorry.
Okay. I'm almost done, folks, so don't worry. I won't go into a lot of details on this. It's just again, we do know that the event has a little bit going on. If you haven't done it before, you got to read the skier's guide, is what I'm going to say. And now we have a lot of the information. We used to kind of publish the guide at one time. Often it would be in January, and what we've done is we've kind of balanced out the information that is more static and changes less. And we have a lot of the information. I have a link there. If you go to our website, it's easy to find. It'll be one of the pull down menus, one of the tabs will take you right to a skier guide section in the right on our website that has a lot of the information that's available now. There are, of course, some final details that will come out later, but there's a lot to absorb. And if you're new, it's kind of good to go to the website and read some stuff and get yourself familiar so that it doesn't feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, as Bob knows only too well. And so some of the things that we'll cover, is how do you get to the CSM? There's a variety of options. There's, a bus system. People sometimes, if they come from, particularly from Montreal and Ottawa, there are buses. Sometimes if people come from we used to have a bus from Toronto. I don't think we do now. But if you come from a major center, sometimes we know how to put you in touch with people to help you get to the CSM if you don't want to drive. You have to understand where to pick up your skier kit. There are, different venues where you pick up your skier kit that you'll have selected during the registration process, and you should know where those venues are. There's dormitory information. If you're not staying at an Airbnb or at a motel, you might be staying at one of our dorms. And so all that information is there in the skier's guide. And typically, the dorms will include food. So you'll get food on Saturday morning, Friday evening, and Sunday morning, but not on the Friday night. You won't get food on the Sunday evening unless you've explicitly bought it during the registration process. If you feel you want to make a change to that, you can get in touch with our office and, make changes to your registration profile. But you've kind of selected those options during registration. If you're staying at a dorm, it means that you're willing to sleep the dorm is basically, a classroom or a gym floor. People, bring their own air mattresses and their sleeping bags, toiletry arrangements, change of clothing. There are showers available, at the dorms, but it's basically a couple of, big schools. You'll understand how to start your CSM, where to grab your shuttle to go to what start line you've chosen. You'll find out some checkpoint information, some stuff about the food, about what time they close and open. So you'll understand, what your cutoffs are, because you will be faced with a cutoff. For example, that last section has a 2 o'clock cutoff if you're a tourer. There'll be some tips on safety on the trail. There'll be general trail information. There'll be much more than the maps I've just shown. There's usually a narrative for each section, so like a few words about how difficult the trail is, and kind of maybe an elevation profile and a detailed map for each section, each of the 5 sections of each day. And then how does your day finish, and how do you get home from there, and what can you do after the event? Usually there's a skier survey we'd like you to fill out. And so super quickly, I'll let people know that we do have something. If you see something on our website called the Canadian Ski Challenge, if you have family and friends who can't come to our venue, we launched this during the pandemic, and it was quite popular, so we still have it. We have this thing called the Canadian Ski Challenge, where people can ski anywhere around the world during the entire season. I believe it goes from January 1st to March. I think it's the third weekend of March, whatever that date is. We're about to launch it. It usually gets launched at the end of December. People pay a nominal fee. It's $49 for the whole winter, and it's free for young children. You get hats and badges, and so we have awards that are kind of centered around the culture of the Canadian Ski Marathon. I can't remember the details offhand, but if you ski basically 15-kilometer sections, a lot less for young people, but you can accumulate your ski outings through the winter. And if you end up having so many sections, you get a bronze, silver, and gold award, just the same way that it happens in the Canadian Ski Marathon. And it's basically a way to encourage people to have a bit of fun and to go ski outside. And before I speak Q&A, I'll say one last thing, and maybe I'll stop sharing my screen. One of the things I did not mention, if you're a tourer and you keep coming back to our event, you may not everyone is familiar with this. Well, we do have something called the Weber Award, or also called the Pink Bib. If you see a skier that skis and has a pink bib and you wonder what the heck is that? So people that are coureurs de bois, there's a certain category of coureurs de bois, the people that sleep outside. When they've done that 5 times, they get they get their personalized bib number. So right now we have like 450 approximately. We call them permanent bibs. And so people that have slept outside 5 times and skied the event successfully have their own number that they keep going back to year after year. We have the same thing for tours. And so we have tours who have done 50 sections over the years as they keep coming back, because our event brings kind of a lot of, a spirit of loyalty. People keep coming back. They kind of enjoy it. And because we don't celebrate how quickly you ski, but more how often you participate and how often are you willing to come and ski with us. When people have skied 50 sections, they get a permanent bib as well. And it's a pink colored bib. Chris is the one that assigns the numbers, or is it Dan Quinlan? Is it you? It's Dan. And so Chris and I are often involved in kind of managing the numbers that we have. And so we have a number, we're actually getting to a point now where we have a few skiers who have skied 100 sections, over the decades, I'll say it that way, and are getting what we are calling a double pink award.
We have
And
9 of them who are just been awarded their double Weber bib.
And so it's just it's one of the beauties of the Canadian Ski Marathon. It's people keep coming back and we keep celebrating, just participating, being out there, and it's kind of a cool thing. I think I'm done talking. Any other questions or?
There have been some questions in the background in the chat, Real, which are all answered.
I apologize for that. Maybe I will just quickly